Yet another weekend of losing baseball by the Reds against the Chicago Cubs seemingly has put the division out of reach, but they're not done with the wild card just yet.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. His name's Jeff Carr. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We love baseball. We love talking about Cincinnati Reds baseball with you. We've been doing it in podcast form for about 14 years. We've been at this a while there, Jeffrey. On today's show, we're going to take a look at a prospect in the Reds minor league system a little bit later today that you think might warrant a accelerated look. We're going to talk about him coming up in a little while. We're also going to talk a little bit about whether or not it's time for the Reds to press to get an advantage. We're going to dig into that coming up here in just a few minutes. But where we are going to start is that neither one of us are really ready to just push the blow it up button. Neither one of us are really ready to hit the break glass in case of emergency switch. But we're going to talk about why we're not quite there yet. And that is where we're going to start on today's episode, Jeff, because the Reds, we said, needed to go to Wrigley and win themselves a series. And the Reds went to Wrigley and they did not win themselves a series. I was hopeful when they won the first game of the series because we all know what that track record looks like. But in the end, the Cubs were just too much to handle. And as good as the Reds pitching staff is, it's clear now that the Cubs kind of hold the cards in the National League Central.
Yeah, I think that the NL Central runs through Chicago, given something very dramatic. And they've already had some dramatic things happen to them in Shota Imanaga and Justin Steele being on the injured list for an extended period of time. Didn't matter. The Reds pitching advantage over the Cubs is not as big as the Cubs lineup advantage over the Reds. And they showed that in a couple of different cases. I mean, when you hold the Cubs to 2 runs, you should win. They should have won on Saturday, but they had 2 guys on base. The Cubs got 2 runs. The Reds got 2 base runners. And that was the difference in that game. I get it. The 8th inning, I was mad at the play in the field, but ultimately it was decided at the plate, and we've had too many of those games. The Reds have been shut out 9 times in their first 60. They've not been shut out that many times in the live ball era. We're talking 125 years. This is the most that they've been shut out in the first 60 games. Like, this is ridiculous to see what this lineup just isn't doing for this team. But I still feel like with guys on some slumps, guys who can bounce back, that they can still make a run at least at the wild card. I got to see a dramatic fall off of the Cubs for them to be vulnerable in the division. Like, I think that the Cubs are nearing a point where they can start to look at what seed they're going to get in the National League and stop worrying about if anybody's going to catch them in the Central. They're just that good. And on the other side of this, I think that the Reds have a shot to get better, make some trades, and get into this wild card. They're 4.5 back of the wild card, where I think that I expected the NL West to just dominate this bunch. They're not dominating it per se. I think that they're gettable.
Yeah, let's kind of reset where we're at, Jeff. The Reds are now 8.5 games back in the National League Central. You look at the Chicago Cubs. Of the division leaders, only the Detroit Tigers have a better record than the Cubs. So you talk about the West. I think you and I both thought Dodgers, Padres, those would be the guys that would be running away with the win totals. But that is not the case. You look at this wild card, and baseball has structured itself this way on purpose. They worked really hard, baseball did, at becoming the NBA, at becoming the NHL, where, if you have a pulse and can move a little bit, you might be able to make the playoffs. So that's where we're at. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. That's a topic for another show. But if I'm a firm believer that if you can get into that postseason tournament, anything can happen. We've seen it over the years with the expanded playoffs, that if you can just get in, you can make a run. So, the Reds have not been themselves this entire season. Every time somebody comes back, somebody else gets hurt. We've not seen this team be able to play as a whole unit and just go and see who they are. It's still my hope that we get a few of these guys back and they can make a run and they can have some extended playing time together. There's still a couple guys that have yet to get going, and we won't rehash that conversation, but they things need to start happening. I said we're not ready to break glass in case of emergency. I've got the hammer.
It was in the hand, sure.
I'm trying to decide, but I'm not there yet. So there is still time to make a move, and it begins now. It begins today. And there has to now be a sense of urgency in this clubhouse. There has to be a sense of urgency. And this is where Tito Francona, I want to see, because there not only needs to be a sense of urgency amongst the players, there needs to be a sense of urgency that is directed and guided from that manager's office now, because you can't sit back and be like the old days of David Bell, where how many times did I scream about, well, they're almost there. They're playing. They're doing. They're almost there. They're not almost there. It's time for urgency, and I need to see that reflected from the front office. I need to see that reflected from the manager's office. I need to see that reflected in the dugout, and I need to see that reflected on the field.
And you know how he can do that is here Monday night, first game of the series with the Brewers, and I'm going to clap to accentuate a point here. Don't bat Santiago Espinal second. Please don't. Please don't do it anymore. It's horrible.
That's the worst softball cheer ever.
Right. Yeah. Not really melodic or anything like that. But no, get him out of the 2-hole. And I'm fine with him playing. I'm not saying bench the guy. I'm fine with him playing. But I also want to ask you this, and I'm going to ask you this in a different angle, because we continue to cover a certain aspect of this story. But I want to ask you a different way. Is Matt McLain going to break out? Like, I want to look at it from the positive thing. Like, is he going to break out of this slump? Because I feel like that's the move this team needs the most. And they can't fix it with money. They can't fix it with a trade, but they also can't fix it themselves. It's got to be him that does it.
I wish I had the magic answer, Jeff. He's got one hit in his last 5 games. And
it was a single on Friday night.
It was just a single. He's not striking out a ton. You look at all of his numbers in totality, and he cannot have forgotten how to hit
right
in the year that he was away. And I start to wonder if he's still feeling things and not being truthful about it. I start to wonder if the healing process didn't go as smoothly as he had indicated. I'm grasping at straws, trying to find some explanation other than Matt McLain just forgot how to play Major League Baseball. If the Reds are going to go, though, you're right. He has to figure it out. And there's only so long I'm going to use the Gold Glove defense argument to keep him around. I said the other day when I adamantly defended him that I'm not ready to give up on him unless the Reds get somebody better. So the question is, do the Reds need to go get somebody better? Is it time to panic at second base? And we might be getting there.
I got an interesting thought on that we'll talk about here a little bit later on in today's show, but I'm with you. This is the move that the Reds need, that they can't make, but will greatly improve their season, because we expected it to be better because of Matt McLain being healthy and playing, and it hasn't been because he hasn't been good. And hopefully we can get the good McLain back, because they need him. They need him especially for this series. The Reds are getting ready to play the Milwaukee Brewers. They're back at home this week, and they start the homestand with one of the hottest teams in baseball and a team that's had their number in a long time. It is time for the Reds to press that home field advantage. I'll tell you why coming up next. Watching baseball, it's a hungry man's game, and Wonderful Pistachios are going to help you win that game. This is the best snack. I'm gonna tell you what, this tastes amazing. This is the no shells variety, the smoky barbecue. You absolutely get the wonderful barbecue flavor, the well-seasoned no-shell pistachios. They also have all these other great flavors on the no-shells, like salt and vinegar. They got salt roasted. They got chili roasted, jalapeno lime. So many mouth-watering flavors, but my favorite has been this smoky barbecue. You will completely forget the fact that these are actually really good for you. Like 1 ounce servings have 11% of your daily value of protein. That's wonderful pistachios. They are going to replace those unhealthy for you snacks that kind of are your Achilles heel, and they're going to strengthen you because they are awesome. Get snacking, get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. That's wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I got this one from my local grocery store. Recommend you go grab yourself one today. Make sure that you become an everydayer by hitting that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting app. We're seriously on all of those. You'll get all the content that we have for you all throughout the season, including the Reds Postcast with Tim Daniel that goes live at the end of every game. That's right here on the Locked On Reds YouTube page. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now.
Can I just say, it's interesting. It's probably a good thing that neither you or I are asked to do that postcast, because you and I come in hot after some losses, man. I don't know what I don't know what the postcast would look like if you and I were doing it. I think it'd be a shouting at clouds event every evening. I give Tim a lot of credit for putting together a coherent show after some of these Reds losses.
All of our cold opens would be, number one, how dare you?
Yeah,
and,
pretty much.
You know, then we just go on from there. But no, I know this, Steve. Tim's going to be keyed up. We're all going to be keyed up because the Reds are facing the Brewers, and what that's meant in years past has been frustration. And right now, the Brewers couldn't be hotter than they are. They're on a 7-game win streak. They've swept the Red Sox. They swept the Phillies. The Red Sox, a bit questionable. The Phillies are not. The Phillies are one of the best teams in the National League, and the Brewers made them look like chumps these last couple of days. Go check out our friend Connor Thomas from work, because he's pretty much said those words over on Locked On Phillies. But the Brewers are looking really good. The interesting part, at least from a lineup perspective, is that Christian Yelich was taken out of the ball game the other day. He may not be available. There's not been any other updates as to what's been going on with him, but we might not see him in Cincinnati, which could help out a little bit, because I don't care that the dude's batting .233 this year. He bats like .555 against the Reds for his career.
He should never see another strike from a Cincinnati Reds pitcher ever. I'm going to maintain that, even with the way he's performed this year. You're absolutely right. He has been a Reds killer for a long time. And every year I say it, and every year they still pitch to him, and every year he ruins everything. So maybe Tito will be different. Maybe Tito will just be like, nah, we're not doing that this year. The Reds have to break this hold. The Reds have to break this curse, this thing, this whatever it is that they just can't get past the Milwaukee Brewers. Series after series after series, the Milwaukee Brewers just find a way to beat the Cincinnati Reds. And I can't explain it. It's not logical. It doesn't make any sense to me at certain times when the Reds were clearly in a position to win, and then they don't. So I need this is where it starts, Jeff. We talked about it's time. That's how you get that monkey off your back. You break the Brewers 7-game winning streak. Clearly, if the Reds are going to win this series, the numbers say they've lost 38 series in a row, and they've lost the first game of the series. So they need to win the first game of this series, apparently. That would go a long way into making me feel better if the Reds can go out there and get a win in game 1 of this series.
There are so many of those like really dramatic final sounding stats with the Reds, like the 0-38 if they lose the first game in the series. They're 0 for the century if they're trailing past the 6th inning. They've got all these ridiculous numbers against them that honestly I almost feel like gravity at some point is going to help rectify this. But it hasn't started yet, and hopefully we'll figure this out. But yeah, these last 7 games for the Brewers, and actually Christian Yelich in those 7 games has been huge, but their lineup as a whole has been ridiculous, because when it comes to the 7-game series, or the 7-game win streak they've got, I mean, Jackson Chourio has a 357 average, Bryce Terang 333, Sal Frelick 400. The lowest, I mean, they've got a couple of guys, Joey Ortiz, Isaac Collins, and Rhys Hoskins. Rhys Hoskins actually on a little bit of a slump here recently, but he's had a good season. He's been their best hitter on the whole as far as like OPS plus is concerned for the year. But their lineup is going. And so that's going to be a big challenge, because as much as we talk about that the Reds can pitch to anybody, they showed against the Cubs that if you're running into a hot lineup, eventually that hot lineup is going to get to some aspect of the Reds pitching staff. And so are they going to falter against this Milwaukee lineup? They got the right guys going. They got Brady Singer, Hunter Greene, and Andrew Abbott pitching in this series. So it feels like if you get the first game, you should be able to win either Hunter Greene or Andrew Abbott's start, but they got to win game 1.
Yeah, I like Singer going in game 1 of this thing. His man, I'm really nervous about this series, Jeff. I keep looking at these. I keep looking at this Brewers lineup, and I'm just like, all my thoughts about Yelich notwithstanding, Jackson Chourio is just, Yelich is not even their best hitter. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, you look at this lineup, and I need a series win against. When's the last time the Reds won a series against the Brewers?
Oh, that's a good question.
Try it. I can't even. This one, I can't even remember the last time they won a series against the Brewers. Has it been 2-3 years?
It's got to be. I can look that up real quick. Actually, let me think. Okay, so yes, looking it up, the Reds have won a series against the Brewers August 4th through 7th, 5th through 7th. Sorry, 2022. They won 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee.
2020.
I want to do series in the last
I want to do my best, like Bob Uecker, and be like one series in 3 years. That has
we
to.
Can modify. Let's modify the Bob. Tribute to Bob Uecker in Major League. The Reds won a series against the Brewers, and I think I'll wet my pants.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly right. That's how much the Brewers have dominated this Cincinnati Reds team. You've got to go back to 2022. So for me, a lot of things, a lot of momentum could be built if they could just get that monkey off their back this series right now. You look at the Brewers and you look at the Reds, and even as wonky as the Reds have been, they should be able to hang with them. I'm like, they're definitely going to win this series. No, I'm not saying that, but the Reds should be able to compete with the Brewers.
Yeah, because everything right now for the Brewers is just it's all on 1,000 right now. Like if you look at hitting, like I mentioned, their hitting's hot, the pitching's hot. The only guy that has like anything questionable whatsoever in pitching wise for them the last couple of days has been Tyler Alexander. Everybody else has been absolute nails. So what can the Reds do coming off a series against a good team that they lost to in the Cubs to play a series against a team that they are comparable to, but they are just on a heater right now? Can the Reds stop that here? There are so many things that are working against them in this series that I think it would do wonders for their confidence as a team if they can get over on it, but they've got to press that advantage while they're here at home, something that they have really struggled to do over the last couple of years. And I think that, they've had some luck, some good fortune with the long ball here recently. Hopefully Elly can continue his stretch of long balls. Was happy to see him hit that home run on Sunday, dealing with the loss in the family, losing his sister, kind of dealing with a bit of a hammy issue that even Terry Francona addressed and said that we kind of fall back on him, how he's feeling. We're letting him go right now. So can he continue this against the Brewers pitching staff that they're going to face Freddie Peralta in game 2? That game 2, Hunter Greene against Freddie Peralta is going to be a war. So can they get it over in game 1? That's really going to be the big question.
Right. So, Singer's up against a guy that's got 3 starts this season in Aaron
Savale.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Savale's a right-handed pitcher. So that's favorable towards the Reds. It's not a soft toss, not a soft tossing lefty. We don't want to see another soft tossing lefty ever again. But Savale this season is 6 ERA, 3 games started. He's pitched 12 innings in those 3 games, Jeff. You look at his strikeouts per 9 and his walks per 9. He's not overpowering anybody. In those 3 games, he's striking out 6.8 per 9. He's walking 3 per 9. This is a guy the Reds could get at. And I want to see as many lefties as possible. Lux will be in the lineup. Fraley will be in the lineup. Benson will be in the lineup.
Yep.
I need all 3 of those guys to go off and make the most of their ability. And it means left-handed Elly De La Cruz. So that's the best version of the lineup that the Reds can put out there right now. And I'm hoping they can go off in game 1 and take advantage. I only think don't score 14. Don't go off
first
too,
game.
Don't go off too much in this game, because we all know how that works out for him. But go out there and get a win in the first game of this series and set the momentum going, and then see what you can do. And what you're right. It's Hunter Greene has a task in game 2 of this series. And we need him to be good Hunter and just go out there and get into the 7th, 8th inning against this Brewers lineup and really shut them down.
Yeah, those big games are really propping up the Reds' run scoring statistics so far this season, because as a friend of the podcast, I believe Jeff in West Virginia, pointed out, if you take away the Baltimore game and you take away the Texas Ranger game, where combined they scored 37 runs, the Reds actually have a negative run differential this season. So it's a bit of a sobering stat. Let's turn that thing around starting today, and let's make it consistent with this lineup.
That's where we need my Rob Manfred new rule. I mean, Manfred loves to tinkle. He loves to tinkle. Jesus.
All right. Let's get out of this segment.
No, wait. I want, I joked that there should be a rule where you can take games from non-division wins, if have extra runs to spare, and you can move them into others. Let's do that. Wow, that was terrible. What a slip of the tongue. All right, we're getting out of here. We're coming up. We're going to revisit a prospect that Jeff thinks we might need to accelerate the movement on. We're going to talk about that coming up next. If you can't watch us here on YouTube, guess what? We're in every single podcast app that you can imagine. If you find one we're not on, I'd be surprised. And if you need us there, let Jeff know. He'll get you there. You can take us with you wherever you're going, to the gym, in the car, for a walk. We can go with you in the audio feed on your favorite podcasting app. All right, Jeff, you got an idea on a prospect, and I'm just going to let you set this up, because I'm going to push back just a skosh once you're done.
I think it's intriguing the way that this team has gone here recently. And I do begrudge that, as much as I still think they are alive in the wild card, they're hanging on by a thread. Kind of like we mentioned, we're holding the hammer to break the glass in case of emergency. So could the Reds accelerate the timeline of Sal Stewart if this trajectory continues? Because he is killing it in Double-A right now. He's not made it to Triple-A just yet. He's 22 years old. Still a little bit ahead of schedule, I think, if you were talking about the Major League timeline. But hear me out on this. The Reds lineup has been woeful this year. And as much as there are guys that are on slumps that could bounce back, they're still taking a while doing that. And they've definitely had some injuries to the corner infield. Sal Stewart began his tenure with the Reds as a corner infielder. He's moved to second base and has a solid glove at second base, but it's been said that he has a better glove at third. I almost wonder if we see these Reds continue to struggle to the point that maybe we are talking about them being out of the wild card, that you look at Sal Stewart getting to the major leagues this year. We have both said we don't see that happening, but we said that with the caveat of the Reds are doing what they should be doing, and they're not. So I think that they should be looking at this from an organizational standpoint, starting to evaluate some dudes for the future. And I think that it's clear that there are a few dudes on this team that should not be here in the future. Number one, Jeimer Candelario, although he did just start a rehab assignment. But I think that's, if they're getting him on the field, that's to repair his value, and then in the offseason, trade him for a lottery ticket in the minor league somewhere and get out of that contract. Ultimately, I would like to see the Reds, if not Sal Stewart, figure out somebody else to call up and see what they have in some of these guys, because we're getting to the point, we're not there yet, Steve, but we're getting to the point where it's turning into an evaluation season instead of a contention season, as much as I hate to say that.
You know, you're right when you say that Sal Stewart's had pretty good run at Double-A this year. You look at what he's done in Chattanooga in 47 games. He's got a slash line of 328, 386, 467. Looking at his total professional life, since being drafted, since starting minor league baseball, he's played in 252 games. He has 910 at bats. He is having a good season in Double-A, not to Triple-A yet. I would need to see him in 50 games in Louisville before I would be like, with that same type of numbers, before I'd be like, yeah, bring him up to the majors. Because if he is progressing well and he does look good, let's not derail that by Jose Barreroing him and bringing him up way too soon and just kind of crushing all of his momentum and confidence and ability to move forward. I would not want to rush him to the majors. That being said, there's also really not anybody else at Triple-A outside of Rhys Hines getting everyday playing time at the big league level that I'm interested in them calling up, because if there's nobody that I have a question about right now in Triple-A that I need an answer to in a season of surrender, because that's what it would be. They would be surrendering the season to start bringing up minor league guys and look at them just for the sake of seeing what they have.
I think you inadvertently just came up with a show title for later on if the Reds continue down this road. But anyway, Season of Surrender. That's good.
Season of Surrender.
But no, I think it's interesting because there's part of me that's wondered about this, even if the Reds were contending. Terry Francona got here, and one of the first things he said was, I made no demands on the roster. I did not tell them they had to go out and get somebody. I did not tell them they needed to spend X amount of money. I am excited to coach the guys who are here and to manage the guys who are here. But I think that there's also an unspoken part of this season that any new manager would have done, and that is, let's evaluate who we've got, and then next year we're really going to cite this thing in. And I think that we've already seen them do that with some players. Alexis Diaz was, I thought, a little bit early, a little kick to the curb, but it's clear that Terry Francona did not believe he could win with him. And I think that they are going up and down the roster and they're asking that question of certain guys. And maybe they've already answered that with Rhys Hines too, although I'm with you. If we get to a season of surrender, we should see everyday playing time for Rhys Hines, see if he can grow. But ultimately, I think that that is something that Terry Francona is doing. And I think that we could see a very busy off season next year. Whether the Reds turn this thing on and make the playoffs or not, there's definitely going to be some areas of this team that change based on how Terry Francona evaluates his first year with the team. And that being said, I think that we're getting to a point with some guys in slumps where Terry Francona is going to start being pretty realistic with them. He's going to start being pretty honest with them. I think we'll start seeing Matt McLain's playing time get cut if he doesn't break out of this slump. And I mean like tomorrow, because we're getting to a point that it's getting ridiculous. Santiago Escobar, I don't know what, we joked about different players having certain things, like Hunter Strickland having certain things on David Bell. Like, does Santiago Espinal have certain things on Terry Francona that he just feels the need to bat him second no matter what? Because all of the data right now is pointing to the fact that that's a bad idea. And I mean, his batting average in the second spot, his power in the second spot, his ability to hit right-handers at all, and yet he's playing them come hell or high water. So I think that we're seeing a lot of evaluation going on. And I think there's going to be a point in the season where we begin to see some interesting in-organization players get call-ups and get a look.
Well, I don't know if it'll be call-ups, Jeff, but here's what I just looking at the 40-man right now. Jeimer, Candelario, CES, and Austin Hayes all are not that far away from being back on the big league roster. That's three changes in the lineup right there. And then Noelvi Marte as a fourth player on that list. It's a drastically different lineup when you get all four of those guys back. Gone will be the days of Hampson and Joe, which should make you very excited. So, that gives Francona a little bit more to work with. And, I wonder, to your point on Matt McLain, is if you get Candelario back and you get CES back, that frees up Spencer Steer to play other places. And I don't know that you don't have a little bit of a Gavin Lux, Spencer Steer combo second baseman at times to take the pressure off Matt McLain. Is it time then to talk about sending him down? I don't know. Maybe. I'm still not there yet.
I would think if he's not part of a platoon, you're sending him to AAA for everyday playing time.
Which I'd be willing to entertain there because the numbers say a Spencer Steer, Gavin Lux platoon is better than what Matt McLain's doing. And what I said was, I'm willing to consider it if you replace him with somebody better and that there was nobody in AAA to do that. If you free up Spencer Steer to be that, then I would be like, okay, yeah, send Matt McLain down and see if he can get his head straight.
And I agree with your overall point on, you got to make sure that the roster is not hurting for one guy. But I do wonder a bit about Matt McLain. But I think what you said, though, was a good segue and something that we will cover a lot on tomorrow's episode. And that is there are some dudes that are close. Christian Encarnación-Strand might be the closest of the three, but CES, Austin Hayes, Jeimer Candelario are getting close to returning. So what's the roster going to do to accommodate those guys returning to the major leagues? That will be our subject on the next Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you join us for that. And the way that you don't miss that is to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to become an everydayer by hitting that subscribe button. We always appreciate those who make Locked On Reds part of their everyday routine. If you didn't, make sure you check out the crossover that I had with Matt Cozy of Locked On Cubs and why I sort of admit that the Reds aren't as good as the Cubs are. I don't know why I had a hard time doing that, but I did. It's pretty obvious, unfortunately. But we talked a little bit about that and the plans for both teams as we near the trade deadline. He even asked about what the Cubs might get if they try to trade for Nick Martinez. And I also told him, don't you dare go anywhere near Luis Castillo. The Mariners should not trade him to Chicago.
Oh,
anyway, you should check
that. That awful thought is where we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Go check out our guy Studley on Locked On MLB. He's got the national perspective for you. Funny guy, great stories, great insight. Go check him out. Until we're in your feeds again, we're going to keep gathering up the news, the notes, the information, the rumors, and the reports, and we'll bring them back right here to keep you Locked On Reds every single day.
I'd like to point out that your slip up there at the end of the second segment, you weren't wrong.
Just